What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got another Bright Eyes reaction. This time down in the weeds where the world once was, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and Bright Eyes superfan, Caitlin. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate you and all the patrons that make this thing go. If you'd like to support us anyway, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. The last 2 months I've done I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, and Digital Ash and a Digital Urn. Now we're going to skip all the way to their most recent album at the time of this filming in 2022. This album is from 2020. It's their 10th studio album, the first one in almost a decade, it's been a little over 9 years, following The People's Key in 2011. It was released by Dead Oceans on August 21st, 2020, and was their first album not released by Saddle Creek Records. So the story goes, all three members remain in close contact with each other. Conor Oberst, who lives in Omaha, Nebraska, and Los Angeles, California, lived next door to Mike Mogis in Omaha and minutes away from Nate Walcott in Los Angeles. All right, that's interesting. Walcott also worked as a touring member of other musical groups, including Broken Bells and Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's going to play in on this album. So Bright Eyes' return began at a Christmas party in 2017 at Walcott's house. Conor pitched the idea of regrouping Bright Eyes to Walcott, and he and Walcott huddled in the bathroom and called Mike over FaceTime, who was Christmas shopping at a mall in Omaha. Mogis agreed to regroup, and the band began working again. It was a collaborative effort with the band writing material for the album in Omaha and in California. The album was recorded in 2019 at Mike's Arc Studios in Omaha and Electro Vox recording studios and Capitol Studios, both located in LA. So they're splitting that up, man. The album also features contributions from drummer John Theodore from the Mars Volta and Queens of the Stone Age, and Red Hot Chili Peppers bassist Flea. The album's dedicated to Conor's brother Matt, who died in November of 2016. It also comes in the aftermath of Conor's divorce in 2007 from Karina Figueroa Escamilla, who he was married to for 7 years. However, she is featured in Spanish on the album's opening track, Page Turner's Rag. We're going to get to that in just a second. The song went to 36 in the US, 22 in the UK, Metacritic 81 out of 100, which just basically means the critics loved it. All lyrics written by Conor, except where I note all music's composed by all three of them. All right, well, before I get started, the music's not going to be in the video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. So click on that link and check it out. Thanks again, Caitlin. All right, well, I just mentioned it. Opening track, Page Turner's Rag, part recorded in Page Turner's Lounge, the Omaha bar co-owned by Conor Oberst. So one of the nice things about newer albums, like recent, like 2-3 years, is there's usually interviews where I can pull what the artist said about the song. Now, that's not always right? We know this from music history. Sometimes artists aren't totally transparent about what their lyrics mean, but most of the time it is correct. So in this reaction, I'm going to get to a lot of words from the guys from Bright Eyes to let you know what things are about. And Conor did a long interview with Zane Lowe at Apple Music, which is what a lot of this these quotes I'm going to use, but he told Zane for this song, a kind of sound collage and an exhaustive intro. We have to have one of those on every record. My friend Phil, he used to be our guitar tech for years. We opened a bar called Page Turner's in Omaha a long time ago, and our friend Dan McCarthy, aka McCarthy Trenching, for years had a happy hour ragtime on Thursday nights there for 2 hours, just playing Scott Joplin and all that kind of stuff. I just always associated walking into the bar and hearing him play as the most joyful kind of feeling in the world. I asked Nate Walcott to compose a rag, but then that devolved into a slower Eric Satie-like melancholic ending. We closed down the bar one night and we had everyone come, invited all our friends. We gave them cue cards of things to talk about. We set microphones up all over the bar. Karina, my ex-wife, she introduces the band, and then Nate and Dan performed it for the crowd. It's all actually happening. There's a magical tape sound thing that obviously a lot of editing went into, and Mike made sound supernatural. The other element is Karina and my mom talking, because I love both of their voices. I convinced them to take some psychedelic mushrooms one night at my house and recorded them talking for 3 hours, and then we edited it down. It's that juxtaposition of talking about some heavy things or sad things overlaid upon a really joyous sound of the bar. Conor also took consequence of music. We always start with some intro sound collage madness on all of the albums. I always think of it as a pay at the door. Like if you can sit through this, then you're just, like if you can't sit through this, then you're just a casual listener and maybe in the wrong place. So I see it as that, but also as a portal into the world of the universe that is going to be the record. You got to walk through the threshold and down the hallway. The rest of the record's waiting for you on the other side. It's a little portal that you have to walk through. That's been a tradition on all of the albums. I thought that was pretty cool. So just kind of a little insight, not only into the song, but into Connor's thinking of why all his albums start this way. All right, I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. All right, Page Turner's Rag. I mean, I don't really have any comments on it. It's exactly what I thought it was. It was Karina introducing in Spanish, though, but she basically just says, good evening, and take a walk with us down this long hallway, through the doors and down memory lane. Let's warmly welcome your most vivid nightmares to the stage, performing their latest composition, Page Turner's Rags, and then you get that ragtime melody, and you just get Nancy and Karina talking, and you can sort of understand them, but it's mixed in there. It's almost like Pink Floyd took over, and we're just getting some stuff there. So, I mean, not much to say about it. It's really creative. Now let's go to the second track, Dance and Sing. Connor told Apple Music, I wrote the song, but in a more basic chord format, one of my normal little folk songs, and then it was pretty amazing for Nate to change it. By the time he was done playing with the chords and things, it sounded like Louis Armstrong or something. I was pretty adamant that I wanted that song to be first on the record. I don't know, I just like the first line, keep on going like it ain't the end. I felt the same way about the last song, Comet Song, and the last line of that song is you're approaching even as you disappear. I knew I wanted the album to start with that one line and end with the other. That was important. We all experience a lot of highs and lows, and trying to figure out ways to see the patterns and where they intersect, trying to encapsulate those into songs. Lyrically, it's been kind of a lifelong pursuit for me, trying to do that right. I mean, Connor is a smart guy, and Connor is a brilliant lyricist. Nate actually said about this song, that song set the tone in a way in terms of kind of starting with this raw rock band. By the end, you've got the orchestra and the choir, and in between, you've got pretty much every other instrument. We tried to really tastefully rearrange it so it wasn't everything all at once. It goes through this little evolution. Hopefully it feels sort of organic and not too cluttered, but it touches upon a lot of colors and timbres that are part of the whole album. I'll tell you what, man, with that build up, this ought to be great. Dance and Sing. This is one of them that Flea was on bass, but we also have credits to extra drums and percussion. We got a flute, we got an oboe, we got a clarinet, we got a lot more than that. And then all of the various strings in here that aren't even credit on the individual musicianship. A really good song. Connor in his feels, like you can feel the emotion in his voice, and just some great lyricism as you would expect. You watch my The Bright Eyes reviews, you know I hold Connor very, very high as a songwriter, and I value songwriting tremendously. He starts the song, got to keep on going like it ain't the end, got to change your life. It got to change like your life is depending on it. It's a long time coming, and we're taking it in. What a wild ruse. And he just goes through here, and like his refrain one, I'll grieve what I have lost, forgive the firing squad, how imperfect life can be. Now all I can do is just dance on through. And then in verse 3, got a diamond cold heart and I got it in spades. So he uses 3 of the 4 card suits, right? And diamond cold heart is lacking warmth, right? And in spades means to like a very high degree. So it's just that little genius, really, in the way that he writes. And then the outro, with every note there is, with every note there was, each passing chord, there was only love. With every step there is, with every step that was, spinning around, there was only love, only love, only love. It was a slow dance for us. There was only love, so dance and sing. So that one was really good. Now we go to the third song, Just Once in the World, written by Connor and Miwi Walupa. And Nate, actually talking to Apple Music, said, we had finished the first batch of songs, which we approached the writing in a fairly different way than records past. So in order to balance out the album sonically and compositionally, we put together a few songs taking an approach more in line with the old and familiar way, with Connor playing acoustic guitar and bringing in more or less complete songs. This is one of the songs that came from that. Instrumentation-wise, we went somewhat festive, familiar, and slightly baroque. There's marxophones, organs, pianos. One notable element was John's inventive approach to the drums. It was incredibly polyrhythmic and took the song in a much different direction than any of us planned or expected. It's an update to that older sound, offering a fresh perspective on what could have been a really middle-of-the-road approach rhythmically. I'll tell you what, man, these interviews make you want to listen to the song. I mean, that's the idea. So let's listen to the song. Just Once in the World, also some great lyricism here. And I did find the arrangement interesting and kind of punched it up some. You know, some of the great lines, I study your work like architecture, cathedral of words, the meaning's not easy to tell, come back around on it myself. Admires your biographer, the odometer, there's no way to turn back the clock. It's going to run until it stops. Just some cool stuff in there. So if it's time, let's go together. I'll be your ballast now. Let's sail into that stormy weather, no matter how much it turns out, or no matter how it turns out. The bridge, I just want to stand by your side, guard my darling bride. When everyone calls you a lie, I'll be your shield. They don't know you. There's still some truth worth defending. And he goes on, so you realize who it's written to there. And it ends with, if it ever occurred just once in the world, so we get the title of the song there, love as absurd as ours, I would scream what we lost from the mountaintop. Now go to the fourth track, Mariana, that's probably how you say that. Trench, fourth single. Connor sings about trying to live your life in the face of overwhelming corruption and the difficulties of modern society. Mount Everest, the Mariana Trench, the highs and lows of the world. I like that. Like that idea of putting the two most obvious examples of that in the chorus, Connor told Apple Music. It's probably one of the more immediate songs. It's pretty straight to the bloodstream. Others have to linger a little more. It has a sparseness up until the bridge mostly, but kind of came together in the studio working with John Theodore and Flea. Nate's been moonlighting as a keyboard player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers for a couple years, and Nate told Apple Music, I started in 2016 as my little side gig while Connor was doing other things. Even though it probably doesn't make a lot of sense musically, I'm a huge fan of that Mars Volta record, 2003's Deloused in the Comatorium, which is like a very lauded record. And John and Flea are the rhythm section on that. When we were talking about people to ask, I was like, you know who we should get? It turns out both of them are complete sweethearts, and they're so good they can obviously play any style of music. They jumped right in. Mariana Trench, wow, man, that song was fantastic, both compositionally and lyrically. And I learned something. In the chorus, it says, look up at that Everest looking down in the Mariana Trench. Mount Everest obviously is the tallest point on Earth. Maybe not obviously, but a lot of people know that. But I'd never heard, well, the Mariana is the deepest trench in the ocean of the Earth. So by comparing them both, you kind of see how small we are in comparison in the big scheme of things. Look out for the plain clothes. Look out for that wire tap nose. Look out on the ever-widening money trail and where it goes. Right before that chorus, I like the pre-chorus. The closing Beth Dell tolls. Hear the market crash. Having a lot of that lately in this world. A crying trader swears he'll get out of the game. The cowboy drinks himself to death fresh out of rehab while they're loading all the rifles on the range. And then in the second chorus, it's got a heartbreaking line. Look up at that big wave. Look down at your other brother's grave. And Connor's brother, Matt, who he dedicates this album to, as I mentioned, died in 2016. So look hard for a harder something to sacrifice. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. And yeah, man, I just thought this song was fantastic. My favorite so far. Next up, we have One and Done. Connor told Apple Music, lyrics-wise, definitely one of the darker ones on the album. I feel like with all my songs, there's obviously a good bit that's coming from aspects of my personal life, but I also always try to think of them as a composite sketch and try to find a way to hopefully convey something more universal than just woe is me. We've been in the studio a couple days, and I was just getting to know Flea. He'd already played on a few songs, and it was this beautiful, melodic, amazing bass playing. But on that song, for whatever reason, I really didn't want to hear him slap bass. And so I had that awkward moment of having to walk in and be like, hey, Flea, you know, man, do you think you can slap bass on this one? He was like, you mean like? And he just rapid bass notes. And that made me laugh. He was like, nah. And then he just smiled and said, I got you. I know what you mean. That part on the instrumental break to me sounds just cool, effing sweet funk records from the 70s. And Mike actually said, I can't really pick a favorite, but sonically from a mix and musicality perspective, One and Done's the one where I feel like from a technical perspective, I'm the most proud of. Nate's string part in that is great, and Flea's effing slap bass. It's the first time Bright Eyes has slap bass, and it's not overly slap. It's a tasteful slap bass. It was like, this is a cool, weird world coming together. All right, man. One and Done, a very interesting song, right? Arrangement-wise and compositionally. I did enjoy it. Varied in there. That slap bass is very subtle, so it really was well done. It fit with the song. It didn't overwhelm the song, which obviously there's a danger of that. Doing it, it starts out just even in the first verse. It's Connor's lyricism. My old pal looks shaky with a cigarette in his hand, salt and pepper sprinkled on his face and on his head. Looks like he might start crying. Is it something that I said? Let's take a walk around the block. This fleeting feeling's infinite, right? This fleeting feeling's just a great line. And chorus one, it's not the first time you said one and done. And oh my God. Stood in your prom dress, all covered in blood. What you sacrificed will never be enough. The last chorus, it's not the first dance. You said, oh, one and done. And oh my God, came to the wedding. You were looking rough. Watch the masochists all celebrating love, right? Because love a lot of times is pain, right? It's both. But if you're going to love deeply, you're going to be in pain deeply at times. So I thought it was a really good song. I don't know if this is going to end up on my favorites, but I do really appreciate everything that they did on it. Now we're to the sixth track, Pan and Broom. Connor told Apple Music, I feel like it's kind of an outlier on the record. There's not a lot of stripped down stuff, but that song, I think it fits in nice because it's just got a lot of space. There's not tons going on. Some real drums come in later, but it's basically built around a rinky-dink drum machine sound and the kind of a broken keyboard sound that Nate is making. And then obviously the big blown out vocals. I really like how that one came out. I think it's weirdly catchy and not in an expected way. Our friend Otto from Warpaint plays bass, and I love her. She's got her kind of signature super wet reverbery bass sound. I tell you what, even when Connor's giving an interview, he's got such great descriptive words, man. Pan and Broom, almost spacey in some parts on there. Once again, his lyricism's great. It's a little abstract on this one. I like the female vocals coming in there and kind of harmonizing with him a little bit. But, best medicine's laughter. What a practical joke we have to play. Let's wait for the rapture. Man, the phone banks. We're talking snakes. So stuff like that. If it's not at all that important, then why make a fuss at all? So, more abstract than the other stuff on here, but still a good song. We're going to reach the halfway point on this album once we're done with this song. The 7th track, we got Stairwell Song. Connor says the last line is obviously on the nose and meant to be a little tongue-in-cheek. I'm like, here's the cinematic ending. And then you get a very short but giant cinematic ending. It's a love song and they're parting ways at the end, so they get a good Hollywood send-off. Go big or go home. Stairwell Song. This is a traditional Connor, for me, love song. He sounds fantastic. The instrumentation is just right. There's a trumpet solo in there. That's the only thing I might have changed if you're a trumpet player. Hey, man, I love the trumpet. But maybe I wouldn't have used that as a solo here, but that's a minor quibble. This is going to be one of my favorite songs on the album. He just paints the picture so well. Underneath an awning, concentrating on the rain, hearing laughter in the stairwell, it reverberates. They're talking about the weekend, all the plans that they've made. So it's just nice to have something to anticipate. And then just we were dressed alike, though you were one of a kind for an enigmatic guy. You seemed relatable. You were smart, but so foolish with your heart. I the exit from the start. In the end, couldn't tell what you pretended. Always wild with your sly renegade smile, perfectly disheveled style. What a waste. I regret it to this day. And then verse 2, when I'm planning out, inside my bedroom, planning out my last resort. I have a great imagination, so I just teleport. And then he's back with her or with him. It could be written from the woman's point of view, but I just always view it. I know there was a hymn in there a minute ago, but the very last part, you were kind, existential, and refined. Always something on your mind. Even then, our love was not in question. Nothing changed. You just packed your things one day. Didn't bother to explain what happened. You like cinematic endings. So, that was it, man. Just gone. I'm out. Next up, we have Persona Non Grata. It was the first single. It's about dispute and considering the need for reconciliation and peace, as well as about hiding one's emotions from each other, but hoping to be able to be honest one day. Connor actually told NME, my songs make sense to me, but sometimes it's hard to connect the dots to others. When you listen to a song like Persona Non Grata, to some people it might just sound like word scramble, but to me there's a logical progression to it all. If you boil it down, it's some of an attempt at forgiveness or redemption. It's about a ceasefire amongst yourself and the world. It's a wish list of things that I wish could be settled, but maybe it's too late. Persona Non Grata. Once again, some brilliant lyricism from Connor. Kind of just talking about being deceived or manipulated by someone and something and, just different things in the world, like left your innocence there in Tiananmen Square. You were filled with despair, underfed and depressed. Vacant lot where a prison stood. God knows you never would lie to yourself, but you do every time. Made a life of deception and passive aggression. Gonna scream when I sing. I'm gonna die in the ring. Turn me on, you're a knockout. Climb up onto my cloud. Do your worst to me now before I change your mind. In that chorus, now you want to be true to me once again. Oh yeah, you want to be true to me once again. So, there's some really good lyricism in there. I could break down more of it, but for time purposes, I won't. But I thought this was a good song. A surprising choice maybe as the first single, just because there's a little bit more to it. Like you said, some people think the lyrics are kind of nonsensical. They're not at all, but as a single, maybe people weren't diving in as deep as they should have. To the next track, Tilt-A-Whirl. Connor said, this one is obviously pretty centered on my family. I like it because I think it has a pretty old school, bright eyes flavor. This sort of blown out acoustic guitar sound now that's pretty much the same as stuff on 1998's Letting Off the Happiness. We brought in Andy LeMaster, who now it's Overhead singer-producer, who helped us make every record we made and who sung on every record of ours since Letting Off the Happiness. There's a couple of songs on the album. I think it was Tilt-A-Whirl and Calais to Dover that I had to call a band meeting and be like, we need Andy's magic little angel voice on these ones. Because we've been singing together so long and he knows how to scream exactly like me. Tilt-A-Whirl. I mean, I'm a broken record here, I know, but great lyricism. Obviously, personally talks about his phantom brother came to me. His backlit face was hard to see. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. You can't unhear Beethoven's Fifth. This human heart's an aggregate, competing feelings so disparate and strange. So you can't undo what you've already done, right? It's going to be in your mind. You can't forget certain things. And then that Life's a Solitary Song, no one to clap or sing along. It sounds so sweet, and then it's gone so suddenly. The solitary part, talking about his mom, knew she was going to faint, and then she did when she came to. She said, life's a game of solitaire. Amusement rides at county fairs, the tilt-a-whirl of our despair, and suddenly. So kind of you have to deal with the hand that you were dealt sometimes in life, right? You don't have total control over your destiny. I hear people like, if you believe it, you can achieve it, or you can make it happen. There's things in life you can't make happen, and you learn that as you get older, man. But just great writing, man. Powerful song. It's only 2 minutes and 20 seconds, but Connor gets a lot in there. To the 10th song, Hot Car in the Sun. Connor talked about in an interview with The Independent this time. He said, I wrote that song more recently. If you're asking if I ever think about suicide or something like that, yes, of course, many times. I've been obsessed with death since I was, and then there was some sort of glitch in the interview audio, something years old, and it never stopped. I've tried all kinds of different methods of dealing with mental health. I had a lot of tough times, but my hope is that the songs that I write encapsulate as much as I can the entirety of the human experience, or how strange it feels to be alive. We all know that there's beauty and terror and everything in between. Some songs and some lines definitely feel like some kind of message in a bottle, crying for help, but I'm really not. I'm expressing a feeling that I had on a given day. That's what came about. One thing about Connor, he's very transparent, man. Once again, a song under 2.5 minutes, but very powerful, very sparse instrumentally, which it needs to be. Just talking about how, he's depressed, right? And talking about Parisian revelry, unapologetic apathy. I guess it's the way it has to be. Made my bed and brushed my teeth. Didn't think about dying. Got up to face another day. Just the mundane of life to life. You've got to carry on. Life goes on. The old saying is very true no matter what is going on in your life. Of course, maybe you're the same. Maybe you're afraid too. I love you. I am you. Chopped the celery and made the soup. Didn't have much else to do. I was dreaming of my ex-wife's face. This is just a sad song. It's just painful to walk around. It's just painful to talk out loud. I know this pain is not my own. Felt so hot in the parking lot. The car windows were all rolled up. Just a dog dying in the Chevrolet. Baby, it's okay. I love you because I wanted to love you. And then the spoken word at the end. Lyricism, very transparent. Wow. Great song. Now we go to Forced Convalescence. Connor told Stereogum, obviously I had no idea that this kind of thing, speaking of the COVID-19 pandemic, was going to happen when I was writing it. But anyone that's been laid up in bed with an illness or an injury or anything like that, I can relate to the first verse. I think can relate to the first verse and the idea of you're left with just your imagination. And then, where do you go from there? How do you maybe reconcile your physical condition with, a wider connection to the universe? I don't know. I feel like my spirituality is, I can't really point to anything that I am, but I do believe in some things, and the fact that everything's connected. It's something that I do believe honestly. This song, I think, might be an interesting listen for me. It might be a difficult listen for me, and I'll share why in a minute. Forced Convalescence, not as tough of a listen as I thought. The first verse I definitely identified with, but then he comes out of that forced convalescence. He says, forced convalescence in bed rest, staring contest with the ceiling in my feet, was momentarily conscious of the backflips I've been doing in my sleep. I'm not afraid of the future, have to suffer and repeat. But then verse 2, he goes on, now I've recovered completely. And so now he's doing all these other things. So he was forced to deal with his own humanity, right, and fragility because he couldn't do what he wanted to do. But then life goes on. And verse 3, now he's out weekend with his children, catastrophizing. I can't even say that word. I've never even seen that word. My birthday, turning 40. It said he turned 40 a couple months after this came out. Ending up like everyone. There's no escaping the housework or the bank clerk or the priest. They're waiting for me in my Egyptian sheets. And then At the last chorus, in the dark, at a distance, I see everything at once. Feel the wind through the window, and I'm overcome with love. Interdimensional, no obstacles, mountain and dust. Forced convalescence, some I totally relate to. I mean, I can do a lot of things still, but I mean, I've had rheumatoid arthritis for almost 16 years, and it's taken an incredible toll on me. And this room that we film in is my office. It's our filming room, but there's a recliner right in front of me that I sleep in every night because I can't sleep in a bed because I'm in so much pain and I can't sleep for very long. I wake up and go to sleep. So anyway, that's a little glimpse into little behind the scenes into my life. But I mean, I'm very fortunate. I can still do a lot of things, but I definitely identify with that first verse and accepting the hand you were dealt, kind of going back to a previous song where there's really nothing you can do about it. So you just have to decide how you are going to deal with it. Now we're up to the 12th song. Sounds like a very interesting song. To Death's Heart, and then in parentheses in 3 parts. Connor told Apple Music it's one of the heavier songs on the record. It's kind of based around the 3 non-English words in each of the verses, which is their own little separate vignettes. They're not totally connected, but at the core, they're all driving at the same point. Back in 2018, I just had a lot of music, and we had a C room in the studio, a little room with a Pro Tools rig. Weirdly, Karina, my ex-wife, is also a sound engineer. I would go in there with her, and because I'm not very good with Pro Tools and stuff, just bad with computers, she'd help me, like move this part around and make this part here longer, depending on what my melody was or what I was wanting to sing. I think the second verse was the first one I'd written, so I can remember it being slightly awkward because she was recording me, and it's basically about her. It's a Spanish word for exhausted, and that's a direct quote. What is it like to live with me? She was just like exhausting. After that, I came up with the idea that it would be cool to just have one non-English word in the other verse. The Pope, the Vatican. Yes, it's a sad song. Some people think it's about the Holy Spirit. I am a Christian. I'll try to figure that out, but I mean, it sounds like more it's about just what it's like for him in a very autobiographical song. To Death's Heart in 3 parts. Interesting ending there. A really good song, man. And like you said, they're not really related, but the first verse, Benedict J. Got cancer sick on the course, got cancer sick, got on a plane, visited the Vatican to watch the Pontiff wave, and he said, Benedice, 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 which is this blessing, a Christian invocation, a callback maybe to Connor's Catholic upbringing. Then verse 2 or part 2 about, Karina and what she said to him. I got to get out of here. I can't remain. Limbs that hang like chandeliers from alcohol and age. Down in the weeds again. Tough to explain. Mattress soaked in gasoline makes iridescent flames. I lay down. Then the chorus. I'll ask my love, what will she say? What's it like to live with me here every effing day? But she says, agante, agante, agante. Spanish for exhaustion, remember. In her most gentle ways. Then he says, still think of New York every time I see your face now. It just feels like another life. I'm up late with an imaginary pain. Always did come in waves. And that's constant. All that's constant is that change. So I just thought that part 2 is really once again, kind of like a heartbreaking, sad part. And then the third part, he's writing about Vatican, where it's the one back in 2015 where the terrorists came in and killed 90 people in Paris. So he equates that to then the song Wish You Were Here, which may be my favorite song of all time by Pink Floyd, because the very end of that chorus of that part, and Wish You Were Here, and then the outro, enough blood to fill up this fishbowl, keep swimming around, the exit's blocked, there's nowhere to go. All these same fears year after year, which a lot of these lines are in the song Wish You Were Here. All the old ones reappear, only difference is you're not here. So another masterclass, as many of these songs have been, in Connor's ability as a songwriter. Got 2 songs left. We got Calais to Dover. Connor told Apple Music it's like a composite sketch again, but it's definitely a tip of the hat to this guy named Simon Ring, who used to tour with us. He's Welsh and was one of our sweetest, oldest friends that traveled the world with us. We lost him several years back, but I feel like I have to remind effing Mike Mogus, of course, every once in a while, he's actually the most incredible rock guitar player that I've ever heard, because he's not the type of guy to show off, but obviously he can shred. I was like, do a shred. It's been a while. I'm like, just do it. Like, no, do the real thing. Do the thing. I had to twist his arm a little bit to get that out of him, but it felt right with that song. It had kind of an old school, old badass sound to it. I thought I could use a little arena rock guitar playing just to bring a different flavor. All right, man, let's check this out. Calais to Dover, basically a song written in memory of Simon Ring, who was their Welsh manager. for a little while. And I mean, that's kind of, that's just kind of how this unfolds. And you could view it, if you didn't know that, if you just listened to it, as a lost love affair. Maybe there's something in there with him and Karina too, and it kind of both melds into the song. I don't know, but chorus one, now that you're gone. I mean, this is about, I'm sure this is about Simon, but it could be about Karina, right? Now that you're gone, now that I'm out here on my own, it won't be long until I have to pay for what I've done. Tell me to stop. Tell me to watch the way I talk, because nothing is changing. Don't want to state the obvious. And the Calais back to Dover comes in verse 3. Threw up on the ferry ride from Calais to Dover is white, as pale as the white cliffs that we face. So that's something that they did with Simon. The white cliffs of Dover are on the coast of Dover, England. Calais is directly on the other side of Dover in France. So that's where you get it there. If I was in London, I'd hold you to everything. If I were in Cardiff, I'd just sing. But I'm stuck in Omaha, obsessed with my inventions. There isn't a name for this condition. And he said in an interview with NME, Connor did, that was directly to Simon. So once again, another powerful song. All right, we're there. The last song, Comet Song. Connor said, well, a comet just goes in a circle. That's why I was pretty adamant about that being the last line of the record. You're approaching even as you disappear. It's just a little cliche, the circle of life stuff. I can't remember being born, but I imagine it's a pretty terrifying experience. Good point. Never really thought about that. I imagine leaving this world in it's a pretty terrifying experience, but it's also the thing we all have in common. I think it's going to happen to everybody. It felt like a nice bookend to the record, and Nate did an amazing job with the strings. I felt like he transformed what could have been like a simple little acoustic waltz, a la 2005's We Are Nowhere and It's Now. Instead, because of the orchestration, it turned into a giant avalanche of musicality, which is really cool. And once again, man, Connor painting that picture. Comet Song, an interesting outro there, right? All chopped up, almost like a Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon influence on that one. We had everything on there, oboe, clarinet, all kinds of things going on. Flea was playing bass on it, as he was on several of these songs. And basically the overarching thing is like the comet happens almost once in a lifetime. And this is a broken relationship again. And, verse 2, I hear the words, I took my turn, another eulogy. Not sure I can hang if this is how it's going to be. We reminisce on innocence, then plunge into the sea. Spend decades in search of what meant so much to you, then sold the whole collection because the rent was due. It wasn't going so well there. You clenched your fist and threw the dish and called me Peter Pan. In other words, you never grow up, right? Your aim's not accurate, and I thank God for that. Although I told you many times I'm not much of a man. You held out hope, believing that at least I might pretend. I mean, just more of his just lyricism that's just so good. The chorus vacuumed up all of the fairy dust, held Savasana on the floor, which is a yoga pose commonly called the corpse pose. Just felt like dying when you thought of us. You clapped your hands and hoped for an encore. And he just kind of goes on, kind of basically says he's never going to have a kid. And we used to have, and then the chopped outro was just all of these little things at the very end. You were my dreams. You want me? I need you. Yes, I love you. How much? You love me, man. I don't want to talk about that. I think I'll turn the microphone off. So a good way to end this album out. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. There's 14 songs and there was a lot of favorite tracks. Honorable mentions, we're going to go with Persona Non Grata. Great lyricism on that, and 3 different dudes playing the bagpipes. I mean, where can you get that? Tilt-A-Whirl, Hot Car in the Sun, Forced Convalescence. Favorites are going to be Dance and Sing, Mariana Trench, Stairwell Song, and To Death's Heart in 3 parts. Now we go to my overall score. Look, man, I've said this on the other ones, and you really got to get this because I read lyrics all the time. I know I bang this home on each of the other full reactions I did for Caitlin, but like Conor Oberst is he's a genius lyrically, man. His lyrics are so good. They're just so intricate, and there's so much hidden meaning in there. I didn't even get to a lot of them that he's referencing, but they're just brilliant, man. And in that, I really enjoy this. The instrumentation is always just right. You never feel like, oh man, like they really went over the top there. They let everything breathe. It's produced so well, composed so well. So I'm going to be at a sky high 8.25 on this one. Bright Eyes has now become one of my favorite acts of the 2000s, man, thanks to Caitlin. So let me know what you think of this album, guys. What else should I check out that I haven't yet from Bright Eyes? Let me know your favorite tunes. And until next time, guys, I will see you.